So we're on Spiral Revival podcast right now, and I'm here with Harlan in the desert, and he is an incarnation of one of the turtle spiral beings from the Dark Crystal. In my mind, that's how I see him. He's an incredible artist, designer, creator of New Earth portals to the New Earth, and an incredible human being and a dear friend.
Yes, really glad to be connected with you. I think you're amazing too. And so, this is interesting because, we only just met. It's been a couple of years
I
now,
think
I
two
think.
years
Yeah, I
now.
know. Yeah. Year and a half.
Yeah, I think so.
Through Mark. And that was so great that,
Yeah.
our mutual friend Mark, that you
Yes.
grew up with.
Hmm.
And I've become pretty good friends with him too. But so in some ways, the little bit we've bumped into each other and hung out, we don't really know each other all that well, but
Yeah.
we just get the vibe that
Yeah.
we're on the same vibe. But so this will be great off the cuff. So I think you should, you're doing the
Yes.
interviewing,
Yes.
and
Yes.
you gave a nice, pretty good. Although that whole dark crystal thing, I never thought of that. But there, someone
That's
else
a
used to call me a turtle, the shell and
yeah.
the turtle, so they
Well,
resonate with that.
it's like these
And
ancient spiral, like turtle wise beings, and they have like their crystals and their things, and
yeah,
yeah.
totally, I resonate with that. So let's see, where do you want to start? Do you want to go way back, or
I
start
kind of.
or start from the present and work our way back? We could
Oh, we
talk
could,
either
yeah,
which
we could
way.
do either one. So I guess that makes sense because it gives the pretense as to why we want to go back at all. So the experience that I have of you is, and basically most of the times we've been together is at festivals or at events where you have your beautiful art pieces, portals, creations that are immersive.
Yeah, so I think that's a good place for me to start. So I can
Yes.
dive in because it's true. We did meet at festivals and at Burning Man. So
Hmm.
I've been going to Burning Man since '99. I missed this mud apocalypse one, not by choice, but because things didn't line up for me to build a new installation and have my camp there this year. But I was
Hmm.
there last year with a major piece, which was a collaboration
Beautiful.
called the Interdimensional Space-Time Portal. And of course, you said we're in the desert. It's basically Yucca Valley Joshua Tree. And I do have the interdimensional space-time portal set up at the Joshua Tree
Yeah.
Retreat Center now for the public to be able to interact, which is kind of rare. Typically,
Hmm.
starting in 2004 at Burning Man, like I mentioned, I think I've been going since '99, and then after a few years, and seeing all this interactive big art there, I said, I'm going to build a big interactive piece. And the piece I chose to build, which is on the cover of my book, Portal to the New Earth, it's kind of the iconic portal that started it all. It was actually something I designed while I was studying design at Parsons School of Design in
Mm.
1984. And we'll get into that in a moment, why I was
Mhm.
studying design and how that came to be. But so this piece, based on the golden ratio, I
Mhm.
built as this big 16-foot tall interactive sculpture that you can climb up and sit inside of. And it was vibrating with this low frequency feedback device that I also had invented way back in actually 1980 that I called the quasar wave transducer. And it's based on two bass guitar strings. We're just looking at all my basses I have here. So I figured out a way to get a bass to play itself by basically just leaning it against an amp, and then I just took the bass away and I just put the strings right on the
Right.
amplifier, tuned them to subsonic notes, and it would make this low frequency rumbling purring feedback sound. So that was mounted inside of this, what I called the diamond portal, and I placed
Mm.
it at Burning Man at 1111. So the 1111
Mm.
Diamond Portal 2004 Burning Man kicked off this basically 20 years I've been going on 20 years of building interactive art installations for both Burning Man and other festivals, and bringing them, which mostly in the West Coast festival scene.
Mhm.
But I've gone to Portugal for Boom one year. I've
Mm.
gone down to Mexico. I went to Australia in 2012 and built a piece there. So I have done them around the world to a small degree, and
Yeah.
largely in the West Coast, where I bring these interactive pieces, which ever since the beginning, though, they had a very clear intention.
Mm.
The Diamond Portal I called a key to shifting the Earth into the next vibrational dimension. After building a few more portals that use different geometries relating to the evolution of the Earth's vibrational energy body, I came to see the portals as these multidimensional vibrational energy body alignment tools. What all of these
Mm.
ideas of keys to shifting the Earth into the next dimension or aligning your vibrational energy, what it comes down to is that they are intended to evolve consciousness.
Mm.
And to a point where we would choose to live in relationship to the earth in the most sacred, harmonious way. So I guess at this point, I'll just jump directly into why I was studying design
Mm-hmm.
in the 80s was because I was inspired by Buckminster Fuller
Uh-huh.
and then Paolo Solari, who's this Italian architect that I saw a show of his ideas for three-dimensional arcologies, which is architecture and ecology, integrated together into these megastructure cities that would be
Mm.
the most, beautiful and ecologically integrated types of environments. And arcologies have never been built yet, but they've been
Yeah.
proposed, and other people have thought about this idea of a three-dimensional city,
They're
and
called
that's
arcologies?
that's a word that Paolo Solari coined. It's
Mm-hmm.
architecture and ecology.
I
Other
love
people have
that.
used that word since he wrote a book actually
Yeah.
published by MIT Press in 1969 called Arcology, City
Wow.
in the Image of Man. And when I first moved to
Mm.
New York, now when I first went to college, I studied physics and then electrical engineering because of my
Yeah.
interest in audio electronics. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
playing a bass guitar and I was into the whole idea of engineering music and amplifiers and guitars. And that I didn't get too far with that. I kind of hit a wall with like the technical mathematical part. So
Yeah.
I dropped out, moved back to Long Island where I grew up, got my friends from high school together and formed a new wave rock band. And we moved to New York City. We formed the band in 1980. In 1981, we all moved to New York City and made a go playing CBGBs and other little clubs. And we didn't get too far. We sounded pretty good and we had a unique like new wave sound, but it kind of fizzled out. And as it was fizzling out, I realized I needed to get a college degree, but I wasn't going back to engineering. So I
Mm-hmm.
found Parsons School of Design had a department of environmental design. And since I was already,
Mm.
I just learned about Paolo Solari's work by seeing a show of his megastructure arcologies in an art gallery in New York City. And I'd already been exposed to Buckminster Fuller, who has these ideas of how we can use design science to better the world
Yeah.
for everyone. So that's what prompted me to go study environmental design. Well, it
Mm-hmm.
turns out they just teach the same old boring architecture and design. So I had to make my own senior thesis to dive into future environments, where I
Mm.
explored all of the visionary designs and architects of the time that they don't normally teach you, and came up with my own senior thesis on that. And to some end, what I've just done in the last few years was complete that senior thesis. Maybe this would be the level of this book,
Yeah.
Portal to the New Earth, which also documents all of the portals that I've built over the years for Burning Man and other festivals, but culminates in these future city designs and then my own visions of arcologies and
Yeah.
future ecological design would be, the continuation of what I
Yeah.
started way back in the mid
Well,
80s.
that's the epitome of being an eternal student, which I identify with, and it just continues onward eternally. And I think, like, what was the name of the most recent pyramid portal that we
Yeah, that was a
experienced?
collaboration called the Interdimensional Space-Time Portal, and it was
Yeah.
located at 144 at Burning Man, which puts it way off on the
But it
side.
was right by our camps, and it was just perfect because for sunrise, sunset,
Yeah,
there was the ceremonies, the
yeah.
channelings from what was her name again?
Maria was the
Maria.
South African intuitive medium that I
Yeah.
collaborated with, and that she had the complete vision of it, but then I
Yeah.
translated it into something that could be built and brought
And
there for her
it's
to do
like
the
a
ceremonies.
pyramid that you can sit on each like tier. It can fit lots of people, and it has
The
these like
arches, which represent rings
arches
facing north, south,
going
east, west, and a
down,
ring.
and with her coded light
Yeah, light
language,
language that she
like
channeled.
lights
Yes.
coming through, and it just is
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah, it was a
gorgeous.
really, really amazing
Super
collaboration. I was
beautiful.
honored to work with her. It was similar to the portals that I built for many years, but a slight
Another
departure.
element.
It worked, it's a little bit different than what I would have thought of my own. My
Right.
pieces are more basic geometric forms that, but yeah, so that was a great collaboration.
Yeah, that's a
And
beautiful collaboration.
I think an interesting departure, which we haven't mentioned or I haven't mentioned yet at all
Mm-hmm.
in the why and how I do this work,
Mm-hmm.
is kind of my connection to the cosmic evolution of consciousness.
Mm.
So, and one of the things that I found in retrospect that I wasn't thinking of at the time, but the shape of the diamond portal, which is this very simple tapered pylon with a hole through the middle, which I thought of while studying at Parsons, which was, like I said, pretty straightforward, down to earth, normal kind of information. But I happened
Mm-hmm.
to pick up a book written by Ken Carey at that time, that was a channeled Pleiadian information called the
Mm.
Starseed transmission.
Uh-huh.
And I get a certain sense that the diamond portal is some kind of channeled Pleiadian technology.
Yeah.
And to that end, I've always been interested, ever since I'm an adolescent and teenager, in these kind of like cosmic information and our connection to the stars and this awakening of a new consciousness on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And more recently, I had a reading done. It was in 2009 by Lisa Renee. She has a website,
Mm.
Energetic Synthesis, and she's kind
Mm-hmm.
of one of the more foremost and been around the longest, helping to counsel star seeds to
Yeah.
understand what's going on from a very big cosmic perspective of the energies and the influences of the different beings that are all coming together here on Earth. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just humans, but there is these other control paradigms. Lisa Renee calls it the negative alien agenda, or
Mm-hmm.
NAA. And there's a lot of other words that could be put towards it, but we
Yeah.
don't need to dive into that so much. But the point I wanted to make is that meeting her and having this reading, she pointed out that I'm Andromedan. And that was in
Mm.
2009. And I really do resonate with this idea of being from an entirely other galaxy and
Yeah.
being here to help oversee this shift of consciousness, and in doing it by building these interactive installations. And someone
Mm-hmm.
else also pointed out, though, that the portals are really just externalizations of who I am.
Yeah.
And, they're just a way to put outwardly,
Yeah.
and
It's a
have other people,
representation.
yeah, of this idea that I have
Yeah.
of shifting humanity's consciousness to come into this alignment where we're all operating from the heart out of love, and we
Mm-hmm.
consider everything as part of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're all one. It's all one thing. But I'm talking about like just even the dirt and the rocks, not
Yeah.
only the plants and the animals, to consider it all with
Elementals.
care, and that we would interact with it, with the most love, the most care, and to
Mm-hmm.
create an environment that's to benefit all of life and the earth and everything as one.
Mm.
And so I've been
Amen.
aligned with that vision my whole life,
Yeah.
and still, trying to work and connect with other people to bring that about. Thus, the name of my book, which is Portal to the New Earth, the
Right.
name of my YouTube channel, also interviewing other people with these ideas. But the name for Portal to the New Earth actually came out of an event that I started hosting here in Joshua Tree, and why
Mm-hmm.
I moved to Joshua Tree. I met this guy, Garth, who has
Yeah.
a square mile property up behind Pioneer Town and Rimrock called the Boulder Gardens in
Mm-hmm.
2008 on one of my trips out here to Joshua Tree. And I would just come back and visit him over the years. And in 2014, before I moved here, I decided to start to host an event. And I was sitting with Garth in his teepee saying, what should we call this event? And I'd already been building portals, so portal was
Yeah.
part of the name. And Garth has always talked about heaven on earth.
Mm.
But instead of calling it heaven, basically he came up with it, as I recall us talking together, to call it Portal to the New Earth.
Yeah.
And that was the event that I hosted from 2014 to 2019.
Mm.
And luckily I didn't plan on one in 2020, because that would have been a disaster,
Yeah.
getting canceled. But I did shift the name towards everything as an umbrella for what I'm doing: the name of my book, the name of my
Mm-hmm.
YouTube channel, and to further this idea of how do we
Yeah.
get from this earth that we're living in now, under the paradigm we're in now, to this paradigm of living in the new earth.
Mm-hmm. And so what, because I feel like people are already getting it based on what we're talking about, but I feel like maybe if somebody doesn't get the word portal and all they're imagining is like a circle with like wobbling matter that you step through,
Or
and
like
they're
Rick
like,
and Morty's portals, the
yeah.
portal gun, which
And they're
I
like, that's their idea of a portal. And so then you're like, I'm building portals. They're like, what does that mean? So what does a portal mean to you?
right. Well, of course, just in the clearest sense, portals are what you go through to get from
Hmm.
one place to another.
Yeah, the airport,
And yeah,
the
it uses
seaport.
the word, yeah, exact, ports, and
Hmm.
portals are openings or places to go. And of course, in the very first diamond portal, it had this hole going through it, and then in plan view, it was diamond, which is a rhombus, like a playing card diamond. So that's where the first name came from, diamond, and then that portal that went through it. But very much so, I consider what I do portals, because it's like this way to get from where we are now
Hmm.
to the new earth where we want to
Yeah,
go.
a
and
transformational
and and
experience.
yeah, and so it's and especially some of the portals I built at Burning Man are these big enclosed spaces, and you
Yeah,
come in and enter inside this space, and you're really in like a
it's
different
immersive.
space when you're inside of it than when you're outside of it. So
Mm.
just to delineate going from one place to another. So
Mm.
yeah,
And when you talk about them being extensions of yourself, it makes me think of them being a hug because they're so immersive, and it's like you being able to hug people like 20 people at once and give them base and let them have an emotional experience or a transformative experience or a normal conversation, and you don't even have to be there, it's just
right.
happening. And that's what I think, putting our creations out in the world is all about. And so coming to your design and your experience with design, I'm curious because I feel like a really key part of our world is why am I forgetting the term? Um it's like the creators of the Matrix are the people who build our cities. Um Design. I always use the term. Yeah, like people who are basically designing the way that our cities look like and like the streets and the kind of structures that we use. And back in like ancient Greece and Rome, everything was kind of marble and everything looked the same. And now it's like we have a lot of cheap materials. We have confusion, and so how do you think like the impact of the way that our world is designed and built has on us as a civilization and our consciousness?
Yeah. So clearly, you know, with the way humans inhabit the earth is through the way, certain people have thought and put it out there. And of course, we have our governments and our zoning and our planning that is, really based on locked in place old fashioned ways of thinking. And then
Mm-hmm.
they continue to do things like that, put in more sidewalks and curbs and street lights and all of those kind of things to like, turn a wild open environment into like our civilized
Yeah.
thing. And I see so many things, keep
Mm,
moving ahead.
urban planners.
An
That's the
urban
word
plan.
I was looking
Yeah,
for. Urban
okay, that makes
planners
sense. And
are the matrix builders, basically.
yeah, and
And
yet
now
and
the
yet they're constrained by these. You can't just have an urban planner that comes along like me that
right.
wants to do a radically different urban
It
plan
doesn't work.
because there's so much
Codes
constraints
and
through the
permits.
governments, and it's very conservative,
Yeah.
very constrained.
It's not
And
safe.
yeah, and then they put in more street lights, and to me darkness is sacred, and every light you put
Yeah.
in with these horrible, it used to be these high pressure sodium or mercury halide,
It's
and now it's the
violent.
LED lights, and the LEDs, a lot of them are almost worse. They're harsh, they're bright, they have multiple elements, and they make these awful shadows. There
Yeah.
are some LEDs moving in the right direction of being beautiful. I remember growing up in the 60s, our streetlights were incandescent, and they were
Mm,
really nice, warm, white,
right. Warm
incandescent. And then
lighting.
right around, right towards the end of the 60s, I was about 10 or so, they came and they put those really harsh, bright, white metal halide, it's called.
It's like
Before.
bullying.
And,
Like,
and,
why would
and
they
at
do
first we
that?
thought, oh, that's cool. But then after a while, I'm like, ooh, the energy and the vibe you get
Yeah.
from being under those. And here where I live in Yucca Valley, we have the high pressure sodium, which is that weird orangish color streetlight that's very common still,
Yeah.
or being phased out, and it shines right into my backyard, and it really annoys me to no end. And I've been working with the town of Yucca, the Southern California Edison, and then the most practical way, which was pointed out after years of trying to change it, my council member and city hall. That's my way that you can talk to the local town government is through your
Mm-hmm.
council member to get them changed. And he just finally said that they are going to upgrade the entire town of
Nice.
Yucca Valley to LEDs. And I said,
Oh.
but I said, we can't just get any old LEDs. We need to, look and get the right LEDs that are the most aesthetically pleasing, that have the
Right.
least amount of side glare and the proper color temperature,
It's
and that they're
important.
diffused so that the shadows are nice and diffused and not these harsh multiple shadows. And I don't know what's going to happen, but
Yeah.
that other old fashioned high pressure sodium, I when I would walk outside and it shines right in my eyes and on me, I actually call it the evil alien death
Yeah,
ray.
it feels
And
hostile.
it really is. It's
And I
like being
think
in a
a lot
prison
of
and
people
having a
don't
prison
notice
life.
those
They don't,
things.
for the most part, most people think I'm crazy when I talk about it. Like the general public is like, no, you just need streetlights. What are you complaining? It's just a street.
Right.
It's not that bright.
No,
Who
but
cares?
aesthetics are
Yeah. And I'm
incredibly
very sensitive.
important.
Who I am is
Yeah.
very sensitive to that
And it's
stuff.
funny because you might think, oh, it's a subtlety, but it's not. Like, this is the
Well, it
environment we live
depends. It
in. Like,
depends on your level of consciousness and how you're
exactly, your
responding to your
awareness.
environment and
Well,
your
I mean,
awareness.
on one level, it's just you're less conscious of how deeply your environment is
And
impacting you on every level.
yeah,
All the time. The noises that we
yep,
hear, the
exactly.
refrigerators running,
I
you
know
know?
noise is another big one that's overlooked, but yeah, that happens all the time in our urban environments, and we're, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So hopefully, we're going to shift, and people are
Yeah.
waking up, and we'll be able to move in the right direction. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's I'm doing what I can.
Yeah.
And even my council member said, we're finally going to upgrade those lights, and it's largely because you gave
Mm.
us the
Yeah.
instigated it
It's
by
important to
asking for
care.
them to change. So you know for anyone who's listening to this podcast and you think that you're not happy with the way where you're living and things
Right.
are, don't think that you can't do anything about it. That
Yeah.
is pretty much the only way, is to raise your voice, go out there,
Yeah.
do something. And if we all start to do that together to create this most beautiful, sacred, harmonious world, then we
Mm-hmm.
can do it. And I I have to say, one of the things that comes up a lot is the money issue. And when I had
Yeah.
that reading with Lisa Renee, I've struggled with ever making money for myself with anything I ever do. And fortunately, my dad was a dentist, and he's very generous. He's still alive and still
Mm.
supportive of me. So I'm able to do what I do because of that. Because if
Oh.
I just had to make money on my own, it's a struggle. But the point I want to get to is, people will say, how are you going to build these new future cities? It's going to take a lot of money. Where's that money
Right.
going to come from? And one of the things that come into my mind, and also Buckminster Fuller has a famous quote where he says, I look at the hydrogen atom, which comprises 99.9% of all atoms, but all atoms in general. He just happened to say
Yeah.
hydrogen atom don't have to earn a living before behaving as an atom.
Right.
And then he says, as far as I could see, nothing in the world, in the universe, has to earn a living before
Yeah.
behaving the way it does, besides humans.
Yeah.
And he uses the term, that's because it's the dictum of the ages. He's kind
Yes.
of pointing out that there's a certain control paradigm that has brought money. And I was just listening to this reggae song that was singing, money is the root of all evil. Not necessarily so. Money can be
Right.
not charged, and we can use money in a positive way.
Yeah.
But with that said, when people ask me, how are we going to build this new city? I'm like, you see that tree over there?
Mm-hmm.
Did it pay the earth
Right.
for the minerals it used? Did it pay the sky for the water? Did it pay the sun for the light that's shown on it? And the tree is there. We can build cities
Yeah.
if we just come together as living organisms, just
In
like anything,
reciprocity.
and just do it because we
Yeah.
choose to. We don't need to be paid to do it. And another
Exactly.
funny thing, I remember years ago, some friends were sitting around and they came up, they said, everything is free at first, and then someone comes along and makes you pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, it's true. Everything, the fish that we eat were swimming free
Yeah.
in the ocean. The trees that we go to the lumber yard, they were growing free in the woods. Everything is free at first. Someone
Yeah.
comes along, takes it, and makes you pay for it.
Yeah.
So, just shifting the paradigm
It
of the
is.
financial way that we work, to being able to work, kind of operate like the universe works. Like if the
Mm-hmm.
sun sent us a power bill every month, and if we didn't pay it, it would shut off.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So that's the way I
Oh.
think. And I really do think it's
Yeah.
not as far fetched as it seems
It's
to
not.
go beyond money and to live on this earth in this beautiful, sacred way. It
Mm-hmm.
really is just just a slight shift of consciousness and
Yeah.
changing to realizing that, that it is
Well,
possible.
it was done for ages with nomadic people, indigenous people, and I think now that we've gone through all of our experience as humans through industry and capitalism and technology and all of that, coming back to that ethos of the ancient times with our new learnings
Exactly. It's a
can create a
combination.
whole with which I saw on a beautiful like illustration you have on the wall. Like there's the apocalypse on the left, and then he's shining a lantern to
That's
the
Mark Henson. I forget the
ancient
title of that painting, but it's
drawings from the
so great.
future.
He's walking over this
Yeah.
ridge, and behind him is like the complete apocalyptic world, burning and destruction
Yeah.
and war. And then over the hill is a beautiful vision of
Yeah.
exactly what I talk about in
Yeah.
Portal to the New Earth, of these incredible, magical, harmonious, sacred geometrical cities, just all
Yeah.
in harmony with nature. And
Mhm.
yeah, we're really on the precipice of it, but it's going to take action. It's not
Yeah.
just going to happen and someone's going to hand it to us. We have to do it. It's
Yeah.
all up to us. So,
Yeah.
I'm working as best as I can to help inspire
Well, I
people
think
and
that's like
shift that.
some of the biggest work we can do because I was talking with a friend and she desperately wanted to study engineering and physics to create the first spaceships and then came to the realization, that's a very difficult thing to do, but it's just as important to create the art, create the
Well,
prototypes. It's like create the vision because everything exists in the mind first and then we bring it into the art and then it can exist because we made prototypes and visions and ideas. So just holding the vision, literally just holding the vision, making the prototypes, speaking it into existence, reading sci-fi, getting the inspiration, all of these things that exist.
so you mentioned spaceships, and of course, I'm a huge fan of the Apollo missions, which, like, I think 50% people think it's fake because there's a lot of books and people saying it was fake.
Right.
I've researched it extensively, and I grew up watching it happen.
And things aren't
and
black
and
and
it's
white.
super cool that we could build spaceships. And now with Elon Musk building his spaceships, I'm not so into that. But also, as
Right.
Buckminster Fuller pointed out, he wrote a book, Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth. And now that I've
Mhm.
recognized that I come from another galaxy, we are on a spaceship. The Earth is
Yeah.
not just some random ball of dirt orbiting a sun that just so happened to have life on it.
Yeah.
This is actually a
Yeah.
spaceship. We
A
are so
biological
far out
spaceship.
in the middle of space. Like, we are so out there, and we're on this amazing spaceship that we
Yeah.
need to learn how to integrate and operate with, and to
Yeah.
build some like little metal can that we're going to fly to
Yeah, it's
Mars.
ridiculous.
Is, from my perspective, yeah, it is. And so, yeah,
It
we
shows
just
a total
understanding
lack of
that we are
understanding.
all astronauts on a spaceship.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah.
from certain perspectives, there's various people talking that just humans alone are a combination of 22
Yeah.
extraterrestrial or alien races all merged into
Yeah.
one. And that essentially what's going on inside of each of our bodies and between all humans is basically an interstellar war of
Yeah.
consciousness that we're trying to resolve and bring into accordance. And
Yeah.
it's a really interesting thing that's happening here on Earth.
Yeah.
And we're kind of locked into a limited perspective of it for the most
Right.
part, a very 3D perspective.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are waking to the higher perspective and to the higher aspects of themselves and
Mhm.
seeing exactly what's going on. And so, as far as
Mhm.
designing and building a spaceship, that's what we're on. And all
Right.
we need to do is now integrate with the way the spaceship works in the best way
Yes,
possible.
exactly. Because it is, our bodies are spaceships too. It's like each one of us is a node on the circuit board, and we're
Yep.
all driving the ship with the collective consciousness and the power that it holds. And it just takes that subtle shift in perspective because I think it's when we try to step into the individual, like I'm going to build a spaceship rather than the collective that we already are on the spaceship and that the ozone is our astronaut helmet and everything's perfect and totally biological and scientific, like it's all made perfectly already, and then tuning into that reality. And it's hard to see because we're tuned into the 3D perspective of like what we've seen in movies or just understanding maybe the just dualistic one-on-one experience and not tuned into the whole collective energy. But yeah, when we tune into that, it changes everything. It
And
does.
of course, speaking about spaceships, I've ever since I'm a little kid have been into UFOs. I've seen
Mhm.
a few, not really direct contact experience, but seen some
Mhm.
unusual things.
Yeah.
Eric von Daniken popularized that concept, chariots of the gods, that
Yeah.
all of the religious mentionings are actually talking about interacting with extraterrestrials and spaceships. And that pretty much became my religion ever since I'm a little kid. And
Mhm.
now there's a lot of talk of disclosure and connecting, and I don't discount that there are these spaceships, and clearly they're not Elon Musk, blowing up
Right.
fuel and that kind of thing. They use free free energy and
Yeah.
anti-gravity, both
Yeah.
things that I've studied my whole life. Since the
Yeah.
80s, I've come across books that talk about both zero-point free energy, the science behind it, and anti-gravity that's been
Yeah.
used on Earth to build, megalithic structures. There's no other way that these 100-ton stones could be moved. And so this type of technology exists, and the
Yeah.
ETs use it, but it's not like we're waiting for them to land and come to us in the physical form, which has happened a
Right.
little bit here and there, and they are doing that. But
But it's
obviously,
not
it's not a
necessary.
mainstream consensus reality that
Yeah.
that's real, because there's people like myself who
Mhm.
realizes that I'm from Andromeda, but I'm incarnated as a
Mhm.
3D human. I work with
Mhm.
my friend, the Chinese girl Z Earth Star Healer, that
Oh.
recognizes herself as a seventh dimensional Andromedan
Oh, I love
geneticist
her.
also. And there's plenty of people that are waking up to the fact that we are the extraterrestrials, but
Yeah.
the way that we're doing it is from the inside. We're coming into
Yeah.
human form, learning to integrate into our 3D human bodies to be able to
Mhm.
facilitate this shift that's taking place, rather than
Yeah.
having this alien technology ships come down and say, here's your free energy. And
Right.
the reason why we don't have free energy and anti-gravity right now isn't because we don't understand or have the technology. This technology has
Right.
been here, and there are people that know about it. It's the
And we've
consciousness
used
of
it.
the masses
It
that
is.
can handle it. Right now we're
Yeah.
still, the military industrial complex, and
Yeah.
war and fighting. If they had that ability,
Industry.
it would be,
Yeah.
impossible. They would be incredibly destructive. So it's only once we
Yeah.
come into this heart-centered, where we know that we're all one out of love,
Mhm.
that we would be able to have these technologies. So it
Yeah.
really comes down to the shift of consciousness, the shift of moving from the mind-centered, brain-centered, down into the heart. And in the heart, you recognize that the substrate of all existence is love, and
Mhm.
operating out of love and connectedness to all things, and to benefit and love all things. Once
Yeah.
you have that consciousness that's pervasive through all of humanity, we'll be able to have the free energy, the
Yeah.
anti-gravity, to be able to build and create on the world in this, really magical, really sacred, really beautiful and harmonious way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think this was great. I know you,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you have any other questions? Because we could
Well,
go on for a while,
I
but
know,
yeah.
I know we could go on for hours. One thing I wanted to add was that you mentioned that it's not that we don't have the information or the technology. And right now I'm reading a book called The Dream of Earth by Thomas Berry, and it's really amazing. And he talks about about that same thing, how it's like it's not that we don't have the technology and the information on how to live ecologically. It's that we're captivated by the psycho dream energy of the industry myth. And we're captivated by the myth of industry and the myth of more and the dream of more on this earth. So that's where the collective energy is like operating in. And so it takes the shift to go into the ecological age, to operate in the ecological age, to be bioregional, local, see what this like region of the earth wants to be. Do we ride horses here? Do Are we like a motorcycle pirate town over here? Not just the same interstates weaving through every single place, and tuning into the earth's energies. Um yeah.
Yeah, so you're saying that we're like in these myths, but there's actually, my perspective is, there's a certain level of mind control
Yeah.
that's put over humanity to keep us locked into this limited way of thinking, that where we think we need to, have war, and we're all separate, and have all these
Right.
borders and all this negative control. I mean, there's so much of that going on right now.
Mhm.
I don't want to go into the exact details, but I think people listening to
Get
this can
it.
understand
Mhm.
some of these points of this control paradigm and this mind control. And the bigger picture is, it's not just humans have evolved on Earth, and this is created by humans just in the last century or so. This is
Mhm.
like a form of mind control that comes from
Right.
outside of Earth, that's countless
Mhm.
years old, millions or billions of years old, that's being implemented now here on humanity.
Mhm.
And of course, it wouldn't be mind control if everyone saw it as such.
Right.
They just think that's how they think.
Yeah.
Certain people are breaking free and seeing it, that there's a mind control taking
Mhm.
place. And there's so much of this negativity that's there, but the best way to understand it is, it's call it the dark teachers, or
Yeah.
the angels of darkness that are confronting the angels of light. But ultimately, the whole universe is one. God is one.
Mm-hmm.
The whole universe is love. So why do we have so much insane negativity
Mm-hmm.
being embodied and played out here on Earth?
Yeah.
And it's just it's all there to awaken us
Yeah. To
to our
learn.
oneness and to our
Yeah.
divine sovereign selves.
Yeah.
And so, and to hate them and to want to kill these
Yeah.
people and put them in prison or do terrible things,
Right.
you're falling into that
Yeah.
same negative mind trap.
Totally.
We have to see that there is this mind control, see that there's a control paradigm. That's step one.
Mm-hmm.
Step two is then, once you see it, say, I do not consent. But
Yeah.
then step three, and one of the hardest ones, is then to like love them for
Yeah.
it and not hate them. Because if you're going to hate them, you're falling back into, what
Mm.
their game. And so that's not that easy, but it's kind of like in a movie. There's the actor that plays this awful, terrible person doing horrible, horrible things. But the actor is actually a really
Yeah,
cool, amazing person.
exactly. It is
And as
like
hard as
that.
it is to see, but these horrible people on the planet that are
Mm.
perpetrating really, really horrible stuff.
Yeah.
And I won't go into the detail because I don't really
Yeah.
want to talk about some of
Yeah.
the how horrible, besides the more obvious horrible things such as war and destroying the planet and all these negative, pollution and things like that.
Yeah.
But they're there for us to wake up,
Yeah.
and the sooner we can all wake up to this, their job will be over.
Yeah.
And they can go
Exactly.
back to the light, which is where
Yeah.
everything comes from.
Well,
As much as there's this insane darkness that does terrible things, it
mhm.
ultimately, we can all resolve this in the best way
Yeah.
possible.
I like to think like one becomes two for the joy of becoming one again. And I think that the mind control that you're talking about is directly to keep us feeling unworthy and to be fearful. Because if we feel unworthy, how could we ever come to the realization that we are an ancient, powerful, immeasurably infinite being that comes from an ancient lineage of galaxies and has been orchestrating this beautiful plan for millennia? How could we ever possibly think that of ourselves if we don't think we're good enough to even step outside
No,
or
I'm
talk to
struggling
someone?
with that myself
It happens
all
all
the
the time,
time.
all the time.
I'm such an embodiment of the
Yeah.
duality and polarization that's
Yeah.
taking place now, and it really isn't easy at all.
Yeah.
But that's beautiful the way you put it,
Thank
and
you.
yeah, and so thanks.
Well, I guess okay, let's see. So you came to my event, gave a beautiful talk on all of your work, and I think that we can plug in some of the videos and some of the talks that you've done if people are more interested in like what you've done, because there's deep intricacies and frequencies and geometric patterns of what your work consists of, and your book, The Portal to the New Earth, that came out
Yeah,
that you
that's all easily
self-published.
accessible. The book is
We're gonna put
available
all those
as a
links.
PDF, and then there's my YouTube channel where I have my own presentations explaining the information in the book, and then I interview all
Hmm.
these other people. So, in some ways, this conversation today is so much better than all that, because I've been talking about all that information over and over. And yes, it's a lot of cool, useful information, but this really goes to the root of
Yeah.
why we're doing
And
this.
then you can go
And
see those
yeah,
things,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's easy to access those,
And
and
if you
yet
go to festivals, you've probably climbed on some of Harlan's the Jungle Gym,
the Heart Star
the Heart
Portal's
Store
been at over
portal.
150
It's
festivals.
green and purple, and it's like it faces each other. It's
It's
at
hearts and
lucidity.
stars. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
at disclosure, and so it's just a fun thing that like I didn't really get the depths of it until I talked to you, where it's like the star I think is clear, but you don't see the hearts
No, you
until
can only
you're
see
up
the hearts
there.
from the very top or bottom, or when the sun hits it, and
Yeah.
then the shadows when the sun's at an
And
angle.
like you
Because otherwise, it looks
face
like circles.
as people play,
Yeah,
they're facing each other
yeah,
instead of
yeah.
away from each other. So it's just a
Right.
lot of intention put into it, and witnessing people play on it and knowing you. It's like, oh, there goes, Harlan's indirect
Yeah.
hug to the world again. Um, and so yeah, I like to end the conversations on just asking you to share, what is your dream for Earth? I
Yeah.
know it could be infinite, but if you could make
It's
it a little concise.
Yeah, so I just see, humanity living in these villages, and a city is just a cluster of a lot of villages close together. I lived in New
Yeah.
York, and I hung out mostly in the East Village. And,
Hmm.
villages are up to, 50,000 people, which is, a small city.
Yeah.
And these villages, though, would be pretty low tech. Technology is amazing
Right.
what we have, all of our digital technology, but we would just use it in just the minimal way to make everything work as smoothly as possible, and it would be very organic. So I see living in homes that are handmade out of like beautiful organic natural materials,
Mm.
wood and stone, maybe some new high-tech ceramics and things, but the houses could last hundreds if not thousands of years. We would plan these communities to last really long, and everything about it all integrated with all of beautiful gardens for both, aesthetically beautiful and also for the food being integrated into it, and all of the goods that we would be using would be, mostly handmade, beautiful, long lasting, and not cheap garbage imported from China that breaks and has to be thrown in the dump immediately. And just the environments would be just the most magical, sacred, and beautiful. That would be the choice. Not is this the most economical way to do it, but is this the most beautiful way that we could do it? Like beauty is the key, and the environment. We wouldn't be. Trimming our lawns with noisy lawn mowers and gas powered weed whackers. We could just go out, yeah, goats, or just by hand, just do it in the most that sounds the most beautiful. That we light the environment with the most beautiful lighting. Everything about it would just be in tune, with nature. That we'd all just be living in a very beautiful, harmonious way, where we don't, reduce, or eliminate completely all of these, very, obnoxious things that we have in our environments, and just focus on how to make it just as beautiful as possible. And obviously my choice is to live in a more simple, harmonious way like that. There may be people that want the more high tech, and so there could be places for that. There's room for everything on the planet. And also, a lot of people say that there's overpopulation, but I don't see that at all. That there's abundance. It's a mindset, and there could be, billions and billions of people on the planet with the resources, the amount of what we have, if it's all just used in the most harmonious way, that, and just with the mindset of abundance. And so I just see us living in, and of course we've seen these in some movies, some of these Hobbit villages, or, in Avatar, the way they're living on that planet, so people are dreaming and imagining this. And it's really, I don't see it as being a problem for us to do it actually quite quickly. It can happen really quickly because we all choose to do this together, and it will be something that's done together. It's not just one person's vision, but it's all of us waking up to the spirit. Yeah, yeah.
Amen.
Well, thank you so much.